This is Ayrton Senna, quite possibly the greatest Formula One driver the world has ever seen.
Here we have Ayrton Senna, probably the greatest racing driver of all time.
Senna altered Formula One forever, pulling off some of the most memorable drives in the sport's history. So let's take a look back at 5 moments of Senna magic you have to see.
It's a giant leap from South America to South Africa, but the Grand Prix world has done it, and here we are, 6,000 feet up in the Transvaal at Kyalami.
Starting with his second ever race in Formula One, the 1984 South African Grand Prix, Senna would show the world exactly why he would become known as the greatest. After an engine failure on lap 8 of the season opener in Brazil, Senna was looking to get his debut season underway with a fine showing in Africa. He lined up for Toleman in a bizarre-looking car which was underpowered compared to the rest of the field. In realistic terms, Senna and Toleman had no chance of troubling the frontrunners, including defending world champion Nelson Piquet and soon-to-be rival Alain Prost. What happened next would propel the young Brazilian into the limelight. Starting 13th on the grid in an outdated car, Senna would showcase his driving skill. Even when he lost part of his car, an issue that would have had most running to the pits, Senna stayed out, conscious of the time loss of pitting and confident that he could push the damaged and underpowered car forwards. And he did just that, crossing the line in an amazing 6th place and scoring solid points in only his second ever race. Points Toleman wouldn't usually see. It announced Senna to the world. It was made more magical when the sheer heat and conditions of the Toleman was considered. Senna had to be pulled from the car, broken and dehydrated. He had pushed the very limits, something that he would become known for. But it would be rival Nigel Mansell who would be pushed to the limits by Senna in Monaco in 1992. Mansell was leading the race when a suspected puncture dragged him into the pits, handing Senna the lead. But Mansell was not far behind, and wearing fresh rubber all round, he hunted down the Brazilian. What came next was one of the best defensive drives ever witnessed in the streets of Monaco. Lap after lap, Senna would hold off Mansell. Despite being seconds slower every lap, Senna held the faster car behind him, using all his race craft. By the end of the race, Mansell had tried and failed to pass, leaving Senna to win the race, and the exhausted Mansell to lose his feet on the podium. If there was ever an image that showcased Senna's skill, it was a Formula One world champion being beaten into the ground with purely defense. A masterful drive. But Senna wasn't just a masterful defender, he was also great at offense, especially when conditions got tricky. At the 1993 European Grand Prix at Donington, Senna would lay down possibly the greatest first lap in history. Starting 4th on the grid next to a young and talented German called Michael Schumacher, Senna would be blocked off heading into the first corner. Schumacher shut the door on Senna, but allowed another driver to pass, pushing Senna down to 5th. A position he would stay in for mere fractions of a second. Senna would move past Schumacher with ease, visibly maintaining a far higher speed than every other driver. Senna glided from corner to corner, picking off one driver at a time. Just 7 corners in, Senna had gone from 5th to 2nd. He would capture first not long after, gaining the lead from 5th on the grid in a single lap against some of the sport's greatest ever drivers. It was a lead he would maintain. Few drivers have ever been so dominant in the wet as Senna, but he did not need to rely on the weather to give him a leg up. Back at Monaco in 1988, Senna would do something pretty unbelievable. His own words say it best: driving the car by kind of instinct, only in a different dimension. Senna's lap was something out of the multiverse. In the godly McLaren MP4-4, Senna would shatter what racing fans thought was possible. Throwing the car around the famous circuit, Senna would fly over the line with a time of 1:23.998. Despite being in the same car, teammate, career rival, and 4-time F1 champion Alain Prost was a scarcely believable 1.4 seconds slower. The lap has gone down in history as one of the greatest single laps the circuit has ever witnessed. But Senna was not just about miracles in the car. He also performed miracles outside it. At free practice in 1992 at the dangerous Spa circuit, ex-Formula 3000 champion and Senna fan Eric Comas would be involved in a near-fatal accident, flying off the track at speed and bouncing back on unconscious. Eric Comas and his car now sat in the middle of the track at a high-speed section. To make matters worse, the now unconscious Comas had his foot pinned to the throttle. With his engine bouncing off the red line and heat increasing, the near 170 litres of gas on board became a ticking time bomb. Thankfully for everybody, especially Comas, the next driver on track was Ayrton Senna. In a moment of bravery, Senna pulled his car off the track and ran back along a live racecourse. Dodging cars along the way, he removed Eric's foot from the throttle and turned the car off, averting a fireball which could have engulfed them both. Senna would stay in the middle of the track, supporting Comas's head, saving his spine and securing his airways. He would be airlifted to hospital, with doctors on the track stating Senna's intervention likely saved Comas's life. Comas would go on to say, "I know very well that I am still in the world, and I owe that only to your courage and generosity on August 28, 1992 at Spa, when you saved my life." I was not yet 29 at the time. Less than 2 years after the events of Spa, Senna's life and career would end, but his legacy did not. Few have touched the sport quite like him, and it will never be the same thanks to his influence. It is often the greatest who are taking before their time, before we have had chance to tell them what they meant to us all. Just like Jim Clark, who we've covered here, Senna's achievements changed the world and motorsport forever, and their legacy will live on.